Chosen.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 3 of the CaffeineBros pods with your hosts. That's Jared. I'm Asa. Jared, how are we doing today, big guy?
I'm doing all right. I just got done at the gym. Figured hop on, record episode 3 here, post-holiday,
Yeah, dude.
getting back on track. What about yourself? How you doing today?
Other than the blizzard that's ensuing outside my apartment, great, man. Couldn't be better. We're in here recording another episode, getting another drink in. How can I complain?
I got to shout out my buddy Ernie. He loves these bums, whatever. So I figured I'd give him a shot too, get a little review going.
Absolutely. What are your initial thoughts in terms of grape? Where are we putting this?
It's lighter on the grape taste. I do enjoy it. Like it is a pretty good grape, but I think Welch's still takes the one for me. Like as far as that one's hard. Like that's pretty spot on. I think it contends with the Rise Kool-Aid though. I think it's pretty close. But what's your thoughts? I probably put it good 7.5 probably.
Yeah, this is honestly, if I'm being super transparent, I'm not the biggest fan of Bum Energy just because typically it's such a soft flavor. But this grape one is actually really good. I think to your point, Ghost Welch's still runs the table on them, but I think this would easily top a Rise Grape Kool-Aid certain days. I think you could kind of pick your poison depending on what you're feeling. I think both of them are very good options. I'm gonna go like a 7.3. 7.3.
Okay.
Solid.
Yeah, I think it's like overall I think this has got a little bit better aftertaste than the Rise Kool-Aid, grape Kool-Aid. I think it's a little bit because the other one kind of I think Rise tastes a little artificial at the end comparatively to the Bum. But like you said, usually Bum is pretty light.
Yeah, no, I'm not mad though. Good recommendation. Keep them coming. We'll keep reviewing them on the pod, and we'll keep going from there. Jared, today's episode, mental health.
Yes, sir.
How important is mental health, if you had to guess, pal?
That's very important. It's a day-to-day battle, struggle, everything moving forward in like your life. I think it's a very important topic in today's day and age, especially with everything with social media. People are seeing certain things, not knowing how people actually are feeling and doing and things like that. So I think it's very important and a very common subject to talk about. Even like on TikTok, you go on there, you see many clips of people, like just little videos, people making stuff about mental health, and like how they feel or whatever, like short little clip is, whether it's edit over of something else. But I think it's very common in today's day and age. What about yourself? What do you think?
Yeah, dude, I think it's something that's become more brought to light, which is definitely a good thing because I think everybody at some point in life may be struggling with it or not acknowledging what necessarily is going on with it. Between if it's stress or your anxiety or if it's a lower confidence image, whatever that may be, your mental health really plays a strong factor in like all of those things. And I think in the fitness world too, like extremely hard to get a good lift in and get going the right way when your head isn't all the way there. It can benefit it, but it can also make it difficult, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, if you're not there, you're not going to be able to literally lock in and figure out what you're doing if you're worrying about other things in your life. And I know that's hard to do because I think, whether it's you let other people decide like how they think of you or, maybe you're not happy with yourself on certain things or whatever it might be. I think those all kind of play a role in that when you're going, especially if you're going into the gym and stuff like that, we're using as an example. But I think if you're not all there for yourself, then that makes it a tough day to get moving forward.
Yeah, and I think to that too, like sometimes going back to our last episode a couple weeks ago, with like the motivation piece and like showing up anyways, and that can just kind of go an extra mile sometimes too, having something found a little deeper that can kind of help you work through that issue. I also think it's super important, that understanding how much like depression and like stress can actually, affect a person's energy levels. It can really take a toll on a person and make it harder for them to show up, which I mean, even getting at the gym, as I'm sure you'll know and agree, 30 minutes is better than 0, showing up and just doing something and working towards a goal is better than doing nothing at all.
Yeah, I think that even if you get in there and do something active, I think it helps relieve a lot of that too, the depression and like stress and stuff like that. Whether it's on the treadmill, whether it's moving some weights, whatever, just something to get you going to burn off some you want to call steam. Moving into that, if you like are dealing with that, just giving yourself a little bit of a break from that will definitely help. Moving forward and being able to handle whatever you're dealing with head on. I feel like like it gives you time just to get some clarity and you know focus on yourself for a second instead of everything else that may be weighing on you moving forward.
Absolutely. And I think that's why it's also important to understand how much fitness can positively impact that too. Like the emotions and the feelings are all very real in terms of uplifting that can come from the gym with the serotonin boost that you can get with the different hormones that are released when you're working out. Like as many added benefits as there are, it's just such a phenomenal thing to be able to go in there and do something good for yourself, not only physically but mentally.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, like I know for me personally, like if I'm ever having like a bad day or something at work or whatever it might be, and I get into the gym and really just focus on myself for that. Like it ends up being like an hour 15, hour 30. It depends if I chat with everyone a little bit or not, and all those uncontrollables.
Yeah.
But like I know it helps me like every time. Like it never used to be that way because my first initial goal was just to kind of lose weight and things like that. But like now that I've gotten older, I kind of use it as a tool for myself to after a long day, okay, this is my time for me and like focus on myself. And then, like it does help me like clear my mind a little bit from the day if I did have a shitty one, whatever it might be. And then I get in there and challenge myself a little bit. Maybe it's a little extra fuel for some reps, maybe it's extra fuel for whatever your workout's geared towards that day. But like you're using that stuff will definitely help you too in that aspect instead of just letting it weigh on you. And like it's hard to separate that. The older I've gotten, the better I've gotten at separating, like, letting that stuff bother me versus like, okay, I can't control this. Like there's some of that uncontrollables that let people get in that mental health state. And that's sometimes it's hard to get yourself out of there because, it bothers you, but you got to like understand that's something you can't control as well. I think certain things like that kind of weigh on people a lot because they buy into that so much and maybe they are like that when you get into like perfectionist mentalities and things like that. That gets kind of tough too because some people want to be great at everything, but when you do that too, that just adds more stress on your day to day life. Trying to be perfect at everything, Like Sebum had an episode. I can't remember if it was on his actual YouTube page or if it was on his podcast, okay, Chris Williamson podcast or something like that. But he said he was trying to be like Superman almost, like trying to pour like okay, try to be perfect in family life, try to be perfect in the gym, try to be perfect social life, and he's trying to be perfect in all these things, and he's not getting anywhere with any of it.
Oh.
So it's just like he said, you got to focus on certain things and like focus on the the controllables and not the uncontrollables.
Yeah.
I think that's like that helps a lot moving into like where you can understand a little bit more about life and what's kind of going on. But that's just my take on it as well because I think that's what's like where I've gotten and learned a little bit is more that mindset of things.
Yeah, I agree too. I think it's extremely important to understand, in a world full of uncontrollables, just focus on what you can take initiative on and work around. That's been a huge part of my life too. Even being like the difference in age we have and the lessons we have differently learned, I think that's a key fact that we both have taken is it's understanding that there might be 100 things thrown at you, but if you can control 10 of those things and shift them to benefit or shift them to a different way of thinking, you're going to be better off because then you're understanding that you can still handle that 100 things. It just needs to be looked at in a different light and then handled differently from there. And I like your point too, is utilizing like a gym as an outlet type thing. I think that's super important. And I think a lot of people, including myself, like you said, really bad day at work, really just didn't want to get to the gym initially, but then you get there and you feel good and you train and you see the people that you enjoy being around and you get these movements in and you come out of the gym feeling like a different person. It's almost like that 8 hours you were gone didn't even happen because you were able to go in and shift the entirety of your day from that one choice of going to the gym.
Yeah, I agree. And then I think too, and just like we use the gym as our example, but I think if people have other hobbies that they enjoy to do, I think that's important to make time for that as well for themselves because like that's their thing that they enjoy doing. And I know from like this experience from me with the gym, I feel better getting done doing that. And whether, like whether it's going on the run, whether it's like, like the horseback riding, whatever it might be, whatever your thing is, go do it. And I guarantee, like after, you will feel some sort of difference, whether it's accomplished or whatever your feeling might be. But I think when you get yourself a little time, and I think that's where a lot of people lose it when they get so busy with life and stuff like that. They just lose like little things they like to do. And I think that brings a lot of your like the mental health side of things down, because you're not giving yourself the chance to enjoy things that you loved or did before. I think that plays a huge factor in life as you get older. Don't get me wrong, I know like there's a lot of people with family stuff and things like that, so I'm not going to try and preach about how the balance in life that life is. But I think if you can give yourself a little time just to do one thing that you enjoy, whether it's every other day, twice a week, or something like that, I think it will help you in the long run overall get
Yeah.
into like a better headspace for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with that, and for us, it's the gym, but like you said, for other people, it can be literally a multitude of things that bring them joy. It helps kind of keep that identity and like self-worth of who they are. You know what I'm saying? I think
Mhm.
today's age with social media, a lot of people lose that. They lose that image of who they are because they're too busy chasing an image of what they want to be or what they see they could be, and they're not tuning into like the now and really focusing on what can I work on or what can I do right now with myself to improve. And I think that gets so lost that sometimes people just give up entirely instead of keep working on those things that they enjoy doing to achieve those goals.
I agree. I think another thing touching on that too is I mentioned this in another podcast prior, but like you see what I'm kind of talking about. We're talk about as on the Chris Williamson podcast, give them their credit for that. They're talking about we're taught to be accepted on everything and not be authentic. So like pretty much you're taught not to do this, not to do that, or you got to be like this or be like that to make do this. Like if you're getting accepted by people, you can't. Like if you're in a new job field, you can't do that. So you gotta adjust yourself instead of actually being who you are.
Yeah.
And it brings us to the table. And when you get older, you think you kind of peel those layers back, and then you can figure out who you are. I think like everyone like tries to get accepted in that middle school, high school, new job, or whatever it might be. So they're kind of doing whatever it takes to be accepted instead of actually being who they are, because they're afraid to get judged. And then that kind of weighs on people too, because you're not yourself, right?
Yeah.
You're kind of putting on a facade or a show and things like that, and moving forward. And I think that plays a huge thing too. So
Yeah. And I think kind of double backing down for us, and at least what we can talk on confidently in the gym, I think it's also important to note the way that like it changes how you can carry yourself, which goes back to your identity and self-worth, like finding an outlet of health and fitness of some sort, like you said, if that's a run, if that's a walk, if that's a playing soccer, if that's going on and playing football, if it's whatever it may be, just simple things like that that can literally change how you view yourself, that just allows you to elevate yourself and continue to become a better version of yourself, and then also allow yourself to feel better about who you are and what you're doing. I just don't think that's talked about enough, and I think that's such an important thing that people need to kind of look back on and understand that these things that I focus on for me allow me to better me so I can be the better me for everybody else as well.
yeah, I agree. I think that you like I said, like we were talking, like if you get out and do something, like I mean, that sense of accomplishment of just doing that alone sometimes, if you're not used to doing that, is really nice. You just kind of challenge yourself a little bit more too, and then like you'll start getting into different things, if it keeps you more active and things like that. But just doing something so simple can always help your day, and like blow off a little steam, or like just getting outside sometimes like that and doing something that you're not stuck in the same house or same thing all the time like that. That can even change your environment. Change can help too.
Yeah.
Just getting out of that same little rut. Instead of maybe if you're watching TV for 3 hours a night, maybe you go on an hour and a half walk. If it's I'm in Arizona, so it's 65 degrees at 7 o'clock at night. Maybe you go on a walk for an hour and then you come back. It's a nice night out. You get to see some cool stars, potentially wherever you're at in the city and stuff like that. But you just got to relax, listen to some music, go on a nice walk, get some fresh air. By the time you come back, you're gonna be like, okay, it's time for dinner, time for bed, and then you're gonna kind of forget about how that day went. Or else like with the gym, like maybe it's leg day, so you go in there and you go crack, get some hack squats, get some pendulum squats in or something. By the time you're done with that, you're like, yeah, I'm ready to go home, eat. You're gonna go watch some TV, watch some YouTube, do something like that. But you're not. Whatever happened to say 8 hours ago at work, right? I'm not remembering that,
Exactly.
I'm
Yeah.
not carrying that over past that point.
Yeah. 100%.
But
I think too, coming with that is like the confidence that you gain from keeping those promises to yourself, So like
mhm.
saying, I'm gonna go do that hour and a half walk instead of watch TV for 3 hours, or I'm gonna make sure I have my gym stuff and I'm gonna go to the gym even if it's for 40 minutes when I'm not feeling like it. For example, I had one of my buddies last night that decided to come to the gym, and all day he worked and he had zero drive to go to the gym. But he told me straight off the bat, he's like, I had my gym bag, I owed it to myself, I showed up, and now I feel a multitude of times better knowing I was here for an hour and a half and I got something in and I benefited my body and I feel completely different and I'm not even stressed out about work anymore. And I'm like, dude, that's what we're looking for. That's the benefit that until you actually go through it and you uphold that promise to yourself and you continue to show up, you really don't see or you don't feel. And I think that needs to be something people need to tune in more to for themselves.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think the sense of accomplishment, I think, is a big thing for like attacking like kind of like the base layer of it. Like there's a lot of stuff that can go into mental health, and I understand that. I maybe don't know, like I don't have certain things that other people might have the struggle with. Like my a lot of my stress comes from just mostly work and stuff like that. Like that's kind of where most of mine sits, is between just kind of balancing that. I mean, not having like a family and stuff like life to worry about. Like I don't have kids or anything of my own or anything, so I don't have to worry about those kind of things. Most of my stuff comes from that. So I have very like only one form of stress, where some people might have is a little bit more with everything else going on in life. But for me, that's really mine comes from, and I really don't battle with like the depression side of things, so I can't really speak on that. I don't want to act like I know anything about it. But like, there's like, I don't really I never really had that before. Even when I was bigger, I never really had it. Like stuff we talked about earlier. At least I can remember off the top of my head. And a lot of people have those battles that they struggle with, and it might be a little bit more of those things, and it's kind of hard to speak on. But I think if they get to like I said, going back to that as the sense of accomplishment of something, we're not meant to really sit around and kind of do those things and sit on social media. Like if you go back and reflect on some goal that you set for yourself and did it, I guarantee it brought you joy, right? Like accomplishing your bodybuilding, show that you did, because they brought you like, you must, as much as it sucked being in a deficit, like getting to that point where you were like, I got on stage, I did something that a handful of people have done, and challenge themselves and can actually do, because a lot of people in those things so break down, and they have to kind of live with that, which kind of might weigh on them too for the mental health side of things too. So it's like having some sort of sense of accomplishment really helps go a long way in life. And whether it can be the smallest thing, it can be the biggest thing. It doesn't matter what you want to be. You can build it from the bottom up. But I think that sense of accomplishment is like one of the key steps to helping mental health a little bit.
Absolutely. And I think within that and understanding your sense of accomplishment, there needs to come a time with like positive self-talk as well. I think there's a lot of people that I even see on the daily, and I'm sure you probably see this too, that it's just negative. There's just everything's wrong, everything's not going to be right. It's always almost, I hate saying victim mentality ish, but it's very much like,
Yeah.
oh, I can't fix this, I'm never going to get out of this. And I think understanding that the way you think and the way you act work together, they correlate. So it's when you decide to actually have that thought of, I can change this, or I can fix this, or I can work on this, or I can see this as an opportunity, is going to be that door that opens. And now don't get me wrong, there's definitely situations and moments where that isn't going to just fix and cure all your problems. You and I aren't the experts here, we just are talking about it, as.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
for a lot of people that are just dealing with things in their day to day that just need that little bit of a change, that's a big step that can go a long ways, is just the way you talk to yourself about how things are going and the way that you project yourself to others in situations of struggle or stress.
Yeah, there's a lot of negative self-talk. I think a lot of people don't look at the positives of certain things in life, and like I can't remember if it was Paul Walker or who it was that had a quote of someone like, "There's someone in a hospital bed that is killing to be where you're at today," kind of thing. And I was thinking about that too, because I mean, like, you maybe don't have everything you want, or you don't realize what you got, but a lot of people always want like more, which I understand with progression of stuff that you get in life, but the fact is, you got to look at yourself. Let's go back to reflection a little bit too, though. So look what you have. Like, if you got an apartment over your head, you're already a step ahead there. You got a car. You're not waiting at the bus stop. You're like, if people look at that stuff and be like, "Well, I don't have the nicest car. Well, my apartment's only this small, whatever." But like, you gotta understand, people. Some people don't have that. Some people are still living at home. Some people are, maybe homeless, don't have a car, riding the bus, things like that. There's such negative self-talk, but they don't realize what they have comparatively to other people. We're not dealt the same hand of life, and none of us in the deck of cards. Everyone starts at a different point. Everyone's got different opportunities, everything. But you got to reflect on what you got. That's the biggest thing, because like not everyone's got what you got, and there's some people that would love to be where you're at, but no one wants to look at it that way because they always want more and more and more instead of focusing on like, damn, I really got this and this. I'm lucky to have this. Like that's, I think, the big thing that a lot of people do is talk themselves down. They're always negative, in workplace and things like that. It's like that's going to add more stress to you too. And then we all know, we've all been there too with work and stuff. Like, people that are negative self-talk can bring that room down more than the people that are trying to uplift everybody. That one person that's always boom, boom, negative, 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 negative. That always brings everyone down, and it's just like that can ruin the mood of a whole group of people just by one person having a bad day or being negative, whatever it might be. And I think like those things, people like self-reflection helps if you can come and look at those things from that kind of point of view. That'll help more of a positive mindset. Like, I get to do this. I get to have this stuff. Like, I work for this, whatever it might be. And I think that will play a better role in getting your mindset switched from being, well, why me? Why this? So on so much defensive, you know, mindset into going more in a progressive mindset.
Yeah, I think it's super important to be aware of gratitude towards yourself and understanding of like, I've accomplished this, or I've worked for this, or I'm grateful that I get to do this, or I'm grateful I get to deal with this, instead of just say, well, this sucks, my life's awful because I have to go through it. And I think it's so 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 important, and I love that you brought it up about, someone is killing to be in the position you're at. Someone is. It does not matter who you are, what you're doing, or where you're at in life. There is somebody out there that wishes they could have the life you're living, and they would be content for the rest of their life living that. And it can serve as a motivator to yourself to want to continue to improve, but should also show you that, dang, as much as life may be hitting you, beating you down, you still have so much going on in the world that you can be grateful for, and that you get to come home to a place with a roof over your head, hopefully, and that you have a vehicle that runs, or that you have a support system in place that takes care of you when you know you need the help. Like, there's so many underrated things I think people don't look at, and I love the workplace bringing up, because I think that's huge. Because so many times you can have a group of these positive individuals that are super motivated, and you see one bad apple come into that group, and that instantly changes the dynamic of a team. It does not take much, because one negative person can outshine or outwork the efforts of 10 positive people, in my opinion. It's just so foolproof. So it's just so important to just understand what you bring to the table and how you can continue to improve and be positive and be like, I'm grateful for this. At the end of the day, I wouldn't want to have the struggles I don't have. I want to be able to go through these things, and I want to be able to work past these things, and I want to continue to chase these things. So I love that you brought that up.
One of my favorites, so I just reminded me of you too. So I had an old Shields that I worked at, my freight boss had a piece of paper. It didn't say who it was by on it, but it was just like, if it was worth being mad if today was your last day, like I'm talking about like living. So like I remember reading that one time, and I was just like, like your attitude, kind of like thinking about that, like if you ever get upset about something or bring somebody down like that, would you like be happy with that if it was your last day?
Yeah.
Was it really worth getting mad because 20 pallets of something showed up, or 10 pallets of this showed up, and then you let it ruin your whole day? Would that be the last thing you want to remember? Like kind of thing moving forward. And it's just like one of those things, as much as it may not suck, it may not be ideal, but you can't let that be the decider of your day, because that will, like, we never know. Like, it's another thing, like, you touch on just small here, but none of us know when the last one is going to be. And I would personally hate for that to be something to be my last thing I remember, if I'm being honest. But like, reading that, I remember I was always on his desk because I used to fill in as like the backup kind of manager, for him checking and stuff like that. And I remember reading that all the time, and I was just like, yeah, it's not really worth getting mad about, And then it kind of brings you back to a little bit too, like gets you back into like a normal headspace. You're like, yeah, I don't really want that to be the problem moving forward.
Yeah, it's so true. It goes along the lines of something similar to the fact of, are you going to let these 60 seconds disrupt the next 24 hours? It's like, are you going to let this one incident that maybe took 4 minutes out of your day ruin the next 23 hours and 56 minutes of your day because of that one instance? You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's just super important. And like we've said 100 times today, and we'll keep hitting the head on it, is just that understanding of self-reflection and awareness of like, this sucks. I'm going to figure it out though, and I'm going to continue to try to work my way through it instead of just say, this sucks, I'm folded, there's no hope, I can't get through it. When the world comes down, you got to bet on you. That's the way this place works. Like you said, nobody's got the same deck of hand coming towards them. They don't know what's going to happen, but what they do is what they can control, and that's what makes it important.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the thing. That's a lot of people compare themselves to others too, and that's a big issue. It's hard to get around. I don't want to say it's like you can't, you can't do it. Other people love to do it. I've gotten better at learning, like, okay, like I said, you're not dealt the same cards like as everybody else. So you got to remember, like, you're still in a good spot where you're at. Just because they might have something that you want, they have something totally different going on in their life. And we've talked about this in the last podcast. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes of their life either. Like whatever they post on social media, what you see in person, and you don't know what's going on behind closed doors in their back at their apartment, their house, or anything like that. Like they might look that they're doing phenomenal, right? But there's other underlying things. So it's like comparing yourself to others is very, very, very tough to get over, but you can't let it fully consume your life, and understand like why not me mentality. Like it's very much you can go after and get what you want, but you're gonna have to work for it. But they maybe had a little less of a road traveled, but you'll feel more successful if you get to that point. And it took you longer to get there, but you had a whole journey to understand and go from there. Another thing too, I think you should touch on is like if people are giving you advice, moving like in life and like the kind of thing like that, it's because they either made a mistake or they went through it, and they don't want the person they're telling to, whether it's younger, like we have an age gap, they don't want them to go through the same thing, or at least make them aware of it. And I think that's something I've become more aware of when I've gotten older, is like stuff my parents told me, older friends and things like that. Like you kind of tell people those things to help them move forward in their stuff too, so they don't maybe make the same mistakes you have, but you were able to tell them and help them grow and understand maybe what's happening or what could happen in life when they get to certain points as well. So
Yeah, I think to touch on that first before I start segueing us a little bit, I think that's huge. Like, I think you need to realize,
yeah,
when someone that's either had the experience that you yearn for or has the result that you want is giving you advice, to understand that if it comes across maybe not as positive or not as how you want to receive it, that it's definitely not a dig most of the time. I will say, obviously there's gonna be caveats to that, but just understanding this person wants me to adjust and get better. Like, they want me to continue to work on things that they know I can get around and beat, because they've went through these hiccups and they've went through these bumps that they've ran through. And if I can adjust my days so I don't have to potentially go through it as bad or deal with these things, I'm going to get closer to that goal that I'm still working on, or continue to work through life a little bit differently because I now know that information. I think that's huge. I think circling back to like gym culture and personal image, I think it's super, super important. And we said this briefly to start, how bad it's gotten lately of comparison for social media. And we can both kind of take a little minute to touch on it, and I'll go first. But I think it's gotten so bad because everybody sees these influencers that are living this lush life. They got the $1 million supercar, they've got the physique that people would kill for, they're in Lord knows where, partying with bottle service with all these people that they might not know, but everybody's excited to see them. And I think, as much as it'd be cool to live that life, you also have to realize, going back to being grateful for where you've come from and what you're trying to attain. If it's the physique they have, if it's the lifestyle they have, whatever it may be that you see them for and want to attain, that we don't know we don't know the whole story here. We don't know what are they doing behind it. We don't know all the work they've put into it. You can see them in certain influencers for sure that have grown and grown and grown, and you've watched this kind of take off, which great. But I think people need to start understanding that if you make up your mind one day that you want to be this person, you won't be that tomorrow. You won't be it next week. It takes time, and you have to kind of commit to that time, and you have to understand that with the time comes the road bumps, with the time comes the lessons, with the time comes things that aren't going to go as planned. But if it's truly what you want to do, you just need to stay committed and just keep working through those issues.
I agree. Yeah, they're like, I think it's okay to have like certain people to look up to. Don't get me wrong. I'm gonna say like that, like like your C-bums, your Arnolds, and things like that. We talk about are kind of our motivators in that way, but ultimately you're gonna have your own life to go with that stuff. Not that influencer or whoever you follow. They have their own life that they've paved. You have your own life. Just because you might like some of the things that they've done. So you can try and get that for yourself and work for it. But you also gotta remember you're gonna have your own life too, because we're not dealt the same thing. So you might, the partying stuff might not be your thing when you get to that physique that you want. You never know. Like you could be like, I want to try and go compete. I want to try and start up a podcast. I want to start up a YouTube channel of my lifts. I want to do whatever you might want to do to get to that point. And maybe like you don't see the appeal in that stuff anymore. When you mature, you're like, hey, you know what? It's maybe not my thing anymore. I want to try something a little different. Maybe challenge myself different ways than those guys did. And I think that, like I said, it's good to have someone to look up to, but don't necessarily buy into everything that they're doing because of the behind the scenes stuff we don't know. What their managers are having them do, their sponsors are having them do. You don't know any of that stuff, that they might have their hands tied on certain things. They may not like that stuff too either, but then, like I said, they have a sponsor that's paying them, so they have to go do certain things, So it's kind of tough to say like that side of things. So don't necessarily buy into that fully. But like have someone you can look up to. You really think's a solid, influence on your life that if you believe in their mentality, their progress, things like that too. So
yeah, and I think for us specifically, and for a good chunk of our viewers that are the gym goers, that are the fitness people that enjoy it, I think it's also important to understand everyone in the gym started somewhere. I think that's as cheesy of a quote as that can be. I think it always needs to be remembered, because with the people we talk to that may look up to us, or the people that we talk to that we look up to, whatever that may be, you have to understand that there's a theme here. There's a time and quantity that goes into this. It's the effort. It's what you don't see going on when you're not there and they are. It's all of these things, and you can attain a good physique, or a physique that you want to get to, most definitely. And it's the same theme. You got to stay committed. It's not going to get easy. There's going to be hiccups. There's going to be problems. There's going to be issues. You just got to stay on the track and part that sea. Like as soon as something gets hard and you're like, well, hands are up, dude, I'm done. I hate to say it, you're never going to get the physique you want. Like there's no great physique that came from somebody that said, I'm going to give up when it's an inconvenience to get here on a day, or I just don't want to go today, or well, my body's a little sore, but I don't really want to go stretch and get warmed up and train. There's a million excuses a person can give yourself, but it's up to you to decide to not listen to any of them and still go perform and chase that goal that you see.
I agree. And some of that stuff can snowball too, and it can lead to less of that. Like I talked myself out of this day. Why not tomorrow? Maybe it's still a little sore, whatever. And there's a point, you talked about it like last episode about burnout and all that stuff. That's a whole other topic. But if you're just kind of making excuses for little things you've pushed through in the past, then you're just kind of making a snowball excuse for yourself too, which is kind of tougher to live with too, because then you're kind of proving to yourself that maybe you're not that into it as you thought you were, and that can also be tough on your mental health too.
Yeah, and I think with mental health and the gym, I think it's important, and I know we both try our hardest now too, because I feel like we're pretty good beacons for like light in the gym. We're just good people. We're in there having fun. We're talking to people. I think it's important to understand, like, for the people in the beginning stages of their lifting career, it can be intimidating at times, most definitely. I will never discredit that. Man, woman, child, whatever you are in the gym, like, it can be hard when you're first there, because I get it. You and I have been there. I didn't necessarily have that feeling of like, well, everybody's watching me and I'm messing up. but it's still the thought of I'm in front of a bunch of people I don't know doing something I've never done before. And I think it's important for anybody that's been there of time, even if it's been 2 weeks to 2 years to 20 years, that when you see that, that just being a source of helpfulness and being that person that they can come talk to, or offering a spot, or offering, like you said, a good criticism that's not just, hey, you're doing this wrong, but it's like, hey, consider doing it like this if you want to make sure, you don't want to get hurt, like just things like that. And I think we need more of that in the gym. Not that it's gone away, but I just don't think it's had a presence. And with social media and that image and more people coming in to work out, I think it's just so important for people to understand that they have support systems that they might not even know about until they go in there.
I agree. And then some people that going kind of along with that, though, the opposite side of things, some of those people have to be willing to learn too.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of people that sometimes they think they get offended when you show them those, they're telling them those little tweaks because they think they know, or they watch a YouTube video on it or whatever, they're influencers doing this. Might not be right. This is one thing I do tell people though, when you do talk to someone, you never know what you're going to learn from them. Because there's certain tweaks that I've learned from, doing like the rear delt flies, we did when we were training together. Like that works for you and I. It might not work for somebody else, but at least you can have them try it. Because if it doesn't end up working for them and they start seeing growth like that, right? Then you just showed them something new that's going to help them progress as well. So a lot of times you got to be open, as much as it maybe doesn't sound great. Maybe give it a shot with some lighter weight, just so you don't hurt yourself, whatever it might be, just to try it. But sometimes you can't turn a blind eye because you think you know everything in there either. Like there's certain tweaks with incline benching that I've learned, and then deadlifts and stuff like that. I wasn't turning my elbows, and I learned that from some guy at Los Campeones in Northeast St. Paul there. Never got the guy's name, but he helped me out, and I was in the powerlifting room, and they had there, and there's little things too. And then my friend Adam came over to me, like I said, that squat we talked about early on before that story, that 6 when he wasn't hitting depth and things like that. You got to be open to some of that stuff too, because you just really, really never know what's going to work for you that might not work for somebody else, who work for them, and it works for you. Those things too. So that's why it's important to kind of take those, and then too, you might make some good friends along with it as well, which will add on to it as well.
Absolutely. And I think that the key theme that comes from that is like having support over just judgment necessarily. Like there comes a time where it's crucial to be like judgment of like yourself, but when you're in the gym and you're in that setting, like having the support for those people, and hopefully they have the support for that as well, and that vision, so that they see that as an opportunity rather than a diss. Because like you said, there is definitely a stronger presence of that. Well, I don't need to do that. Like I'm doing it this way because so-and-so on my phone is doing it this way, and this is the only way to do it. Totally understandable, but definitely needing to have more of that growth mindset, like we discussed last week, like a couple weeks ago, where it's like, okay, like I'll give it a shot. I might not enjoy it, and if that's the case, cool. I'm going to try to do something different that's going to do the same thing.
Yep. I agree, and I think that it's like both sides. It's like I think some people need to tell some people, and some people need to learn to listen and kind of go with it and try it out. Because like I said, you just never know who you're gonna meet in there, and like what's gonna work and whatnot. Give them a little bit of time of day, and see what they have to say for you. I think that's going to be big, because there's people over here in fitness journey of mine that have helped me out a lot, helped you out a lot, me a lot, if they're showing certain things, or even just being there to motivate you to kind of grind through and get some of that stuff done. So
absolutely. I think this last piece here that we can touch on for a little bit, just personal experiences. Now I know you've said, well, I haven't necessarily dealt with, like a depression or anything of that manner, but I still think both of us have had, say a rough mental period, or a low self-esteem, or for example, major life change where you move across the country and you still have to try to adapt that fitness routine. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's important for us to kind of touch on that, so the viewers can also understand, like, dang, that's where these guys are coming from, and not just, well, why are they preaching to the choir about this stuff, but we don't know what they've done,
Yeah, I agree. I think my I would say 21 to 25 would probably have been a really growing period, just to kind of, like I said, when I talked about earlier, is peeling back those layers of who I really was. I think a lot of time in like high school and early college, you just want to be accepted by people. And I really didn't care. I was just trying to make friends, because high school is just because you're trying to, learn how to be a better person, right?
Yeah, yeah.
They're trying to get you to like that thing. So you're kind of out of middle school. You're learning how to kind of become an adult. Early college, you go to a college, you don't know anyone at this college really. I ended up going to a college where my one buddy that got me into lifting was there. I went to high school with, but we never talked. But like prior to that day, and like I think once he kind of moved away and I was by myself down there, I kind of bounced around with different roommates and different things like that, and met new people and stuff at work and things like that. I think that was probably the biggest transitional phase of realizing what I didn't need in life. Like didn't need all the Jordan stuff, didn't need all this and that. That was just like a bigger transitional period, I think, for me.
Yep.
And after like 25, I just kind of started doing my own thing. It's just kind of had like whoever likes me, whoever doesn't. Like kind of thing. And I kind of went from there. And I started making more of, like a gym too. Like a lot of people I went out with to like on the weekends or did dinners with and stuff like that back in Minnesota there. Like my buddy Gunner, Parker, Jake Ryan, Dalton, like these guys that I all met, I kind of came more like naturally because I wasn't necessarily trying to be accepted. I was just like, hey, this is me. I like going to the gym. I like going out and having fun, like kind of meeting new things, like kind of new adventure side of things. And I just kind of went with it from there. But like we all kind of clicked, and you found the right people that are supposed to be kind of in your life, and a lot of them are really good, like really good friends and stuff like that. I've had a lot of people come down to visit, like didn't ask me, they wanted to come and visit themselves. So it's like I kind of feel like we had good impressions with each other there, and just like I think that was probably a big growing phase for me. Like I said, just as far as just realizing like, okay, who am I? Like, what do I like? What am I putting forward? Like those kind of things in life. And I feel at 30 I still don't know nothing. I don't want to say, I was going to say that or something else, but I just feel like I'm constantly learning and stuff like that, of just how to be like better with people and stuff like that still to this time. Like I'm still really good. Like a lot of people know that I can talk anyone's ear off pretty much. Everyone's seen like once they kind of get to know who they are a little bit, I can sit there and use the term yap for whatever long. But I think that that was probably my biggest thing, is that 22 to 25 ish era, because I had to kind of build friends, because I wasn't, like my one buddy, he moved up to the cities and stuff like that. So it's like I was still going to school in Mankato and stuff. So I had to kind of make some new friends, had to make, I had to do all that stuff. So it kind of teaches you how to get out of your comfort zone a little bit for myself and do that side of things. But like I never had a depression period. I just kind of knew like it was just going to work out. Like I said, faith stuff was going to work out, and that's kind of what I led it with. And
Yeah.
I still, to this day, like something might happen, but I was like, oh, it's probably for a reason, right? And then I kind of keep that mindset going with it, and it's worked for me so far. I don't say
Amen.
that, but I don't know if it's gonna, there's a time limit on that or not. But I don't know. I've met some really great people here in Arizona and stuff like that, whether it's work, gym. It's really, Muscle Factory's got a really great community of people there for meeting people at the gym. Like that was, been a lot of cool guys there so far too since starting there. And yeah, I think just keep going with that mindset of like it's going to work out, and people are going to come in and out of your life. Like there's what I think it was that everyone's not meant to be in your story for. Some people are meant to be there long. Some people are short term. Some people are there to show you stuff. And then since you kind of got to roll with that people in your life, because there's certain people I probably missed, I've talked about, and they played a role in my life at one point, but I don't really talk to them much anymore. Nothing against it. It's just that's just how life went. They had their own thing going on. I had my own thing going on, and I think those things kind of all play into like that story or whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think for me personally, which is kind of interesting, kind of for both of us and how the dynamics are, how similar we are, but yet how different. I think
Mm-hmm.
from the time I was 19 to the time I was 21, truthfully, for me is what really shifted and really made me struggle and really showed me, what a person needs to be made out of to survive, truthfully. There was just a lot going on in my family life at the time. Won't get into the deep pieces of that because it's not needed, but as everybody deals with at some point in time, I'm sure there's some stuff going on with that. Starting college and trying to be accepted by everybody and anybody and liked by everybody, and just putting on, it felt like a mask to just, oh, everybody likes you, cool, get after it. And I quickly learned that wasn't who I am, but I was so deep in that hole that it just felt like it took everything out of me to then prove to myself who I actually was. And at that time is when I first started really getting into, training to compete. So it took a lot out of me to decide, like, is this who I am? Is this who I want to be? Is this what I want to become? And with that came, losing friends because they didn't see that goal. Really strengthening some of the ones I have. Shout out Braden and shout out Chiterio, man, because they have seen the transformation of a lifetime in front of their eyes, and I'm so grateful for their support as always. But things of that nature, and just making life hard, but it was making life hard so that way I could grow and develop into the person that I guess now that I know I needed to be. Because at the time, like you said, I was too busy caught up in, oh, I want these people at school to like me. I want to be accepted by the people around me. And now, fast forward to today, I'm like, I have this circle of people I trust with just about everything, and I'm myself. I'm not afraid to introduce myself to somebody and just be like, yeah, this is who I am. This is what I am. This is what I'm becoming. This is where I'm going to be. And I think that genuinely shaped it, and that comes from just so many different things of like low self-esteem throughout it, and life changes, and working through things that maybe nobody could see but you. So I think lifting helped for me on that angle curve myself towards the right direction. Obviously didn't fix everything, but it sure as hell
Yeah.
helped. It definitely made me become a little bit more of a person that I wanted to be and strive to become better. So I think I owe it to that to become who I am. So
Yeah, I think that that helps a lot, and I think it's a common struggle of people, that acceptance thing. I think is really a big thing that it's hard to get over, and like I still remember I was at work and I worked at Home Depot. One of my managers' name is Stacy. She's like, she called me into her office, and it wasn't anything like I was in trouble for, but she like, I always had, like I've, for the most part, me for a couple of years now, like whatever, like I have a pretty good attitude on everything for the
yeah,
most part. Like very rarely do you see me off my my game with that. And like she just called me in. The only thing she said, she's like, "You understand, like, not, it's probably not everyone's gonna like you. You were there." And I was thinking to myself, like, "What is she getting at?" Like, and she said, like, it was like, "You didn't get any further than that, really. It was just something like that." And she's like, thinking around to myself, like, so, like, other people weren't liking me because my attitude at work, even though I was positive, they were negative people, right? So then I didn't really realize that, and that always kind of stuck with me too, because I'm like, I'm not gonna really change just because this person doesn't like me, right? Why should I be negative if they're negative?
yeah,
Like that's not my problem. You're negative. Like it's because I have a good attitude, and like I can't complain about anything in life. Like like I'm grateful for it all. Like anything could have changed, and I wouldn't be where I'm at today, and that's why I understand that. And I think I said it still sticks with me though that she called me in just for that. See, not everyone's gonna like you at work, and you just got to keep doing your thing. And I'm like, okay, it just kind of random. Nothing led to it. Like I just got a
uh-huh.
random phone call about it, which means this like someone was in there complaining that like I was in like good mood and stuff like that. I'm like I don't like I'm not here to say please people, but I'm not going to change who I am for it.
Yeah,
And I think that's just kind of funny that those things happen too. And it's like okay, so it's like you're not just because you're not happy doesn't mean I can't be happy.
exactly. I think kind of tallying up what we've discussed today too. I think some just key things for listeners to pull away from what we discussed. Is I think always remember that the gym is like mental hygiene. It's like you're using this to take care of yourself. You're using this to polish off who you are and make you a better person. It's not a punishment. It's not like, oh, I had a really bad day, I need to go work out to make it better. Because understanding that
Yep.
this is going to allow me to elevate myself, I'm not going to use it to punish myself as like a negative reinforcement, because all that's going to do is build resentment for the gym. I think that's a huge thing. If anybody's listening right now and can take something from it, use the gym for benefits. Do not punish yourself by going there, because that place has so many
Yep.
benefits that the moment you decide to use it as a negative reinforcer is the day you're going to just never want to go back.
Yep. I think it's once you get a routine built for yourself on something you enjoy doing, whether like for us it's the gym, so I'm going to clarify that. But once you get a routine of you can figure out some balance in life where you can focus on you, I think that's a big thing. That's like my takeaway. I tell people is like, yeah, I find something that benefits you no matter what you got going on in life. You got to make some sort of time for yourself because that will help you just get through certain things. And like I said, ours is the gym. I understand it's not everyone's cup of tea that's listening or might listen in the future, but It's something you got to make some time for yourself other than just sitting around doing nothing. And like, I'm not trying to bash on people for it, but it's just one of those things you got to do something for yourself that you enjoy. And I guarantee you'll start to see yourself kind of, and, just enjoy the small things in life too.
Yeah.
So you're able to find some time for yourself and, get accomplished. Like I said, if it's running, gym, or you got whatever other hobbies you got, golf, whatever it's going off, play 18, 9 holes, whatever. Maybe you go play a par three, whatever it is. But like finding that part of it will help even just the base level of stuff to start off. I'm a firm believer in that because like knowing that if I have something to look forward to for myself, that makes my day this that much more something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Like every time, like that kind of thing. And I think it just helps me, personally overall. It helps to have something like that to look forward to. So
Yeah. And I think within that, a couple of key pieces with it is like, focusing on the consistency over the intensity at times, like showing up and getting the right thing done without having to overdo it, just owning that piece to yourself. If it, to your point, is if it's out and just going to the driving range if you're a golfer instead of going and hitting or playing 9 holes. If it's going to the gym and just doing a stretch cardio session and just getting in there and moving your body a little bit, whatever your niche may be or whatever your enjoyment may be, just adding it to yourself a little bit each day, even when things can be a little hard, just to prove it to yourself and instill that self-confidence. And I also think it matters to track necessarily how you feel and not how you look at times. Now, for us at the gym, that can kind of be a double-edged sword, as we know. But I think overall thought from today is just understanding that like up here also matters. Just because you see a guy with an 8-pack and he's 280 pounds on the internet doesn't mean that he might not be happy with himself, and you won't know that. So I think it's ultimately important to understand that you need to make sure you're doing well up here, not just well everywhere else. So I think that's huge.
yeah, I agree. I think that you just gotta really focus on helping yourself there too on a day-to-day basis. Like I said, everyone's different. Mentioned earlier, everyone's not dealt the same deck of cards. So you just got to roll with what you got and be grateful for what you got. I think that, and then you start adapting a better, positive, progressive mindset on those things. It's going to go a long way. And it's very tough to transition at. I've known people for years that still have a negative mindset. But when you bring stuff to them, like, hey, you got this. No one, someone else doesn't have this, or something like that. Like, you can kind of see their eyes start opening up a little bit with it. But they don't necessarily want to make that full jump to like always trying to think of positive mindset. Like you can still see it there. Like when you start breaking it down for these negative people, then they kind of, oh yeah, I do got that right. Yeah, yeah, like so you gotta try and be better with that too. And I think that helps my positivity in the day to day.
Yeah.
Like just having a good mindset going in. So even something you don't want to do, but like we talked about, one person can bring down a whole room. So don't be that person, if you can avoid it.
Absolutely. And I think within, finding something that you enjoy that gives you that motivation and allows you to kind of lighten up and help your mental health, make sure it's a routine that can support your life and not just consume it. So for both of us being, younger guys that don't necessarily have a lot of stressors and a lot of outside factors going on in the world right now, it's kind of easy for us to be like, okay, this is the routine we can adapt to. But for anybody listening, if you're a 50-year-old with 4 kids, if you're 17 going to high school, if you're 65 and retired, whatever that may look like to you, just understanding that as long as that routine can be plugged into your day-to-day, so it's like, okay, this is what I enjoy following, this is why I enjoy doing it, you're going to see a lot more success, not only for whatever it is you're doing, but also for your mental health, because it allows you to continue to do something that you enjoy and work on something that allows you to feel better about yourself.
I agree. I think those things, like I said, and it could be anything, like they're really good at drawing art. Like, go sit down and draw for a half hour. Go sit there and read a book for a half hour. Let yourself go. Like, everyone's got their thing, I think. And it's tough. I think a lot of mental health gets worse when they start getting rid of things that they enjoy in their life because stuff gets too busy or, I don't have enough time and all that stuff. It's one of those things. I think if you just, the littlest thing can help start that base layer of getting yourself back to where you need to be. And like I said, I've mentioned multiple things that people can do in life just to even get themselves kind of what they do to enjoy themselves and, keep moving forward as far as their mental health goes too with that side of things. I just feel bad because I can't really, like I said, I can't really touch base on the depression side of things. And like I have very low stress with a lot of other things. So I want to stress that I can't speak for those people. But I understand that can be tough on a lot of people as well.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. I think just to wrap this episode up, it's super important to understand how much that mental health is like a daily practice. It's something similar to like the gym for us. It's like it requires a deposit every day of your effort because that then allows your mental health to shine and be better. So I think just making sure people understand like that's where we're coming from with it. We understand that everybody's got different lives. There's a lot of different things going on with the world and everything else, but just understanding that taking a moment of time for yourself to continue to see the brighter side of things, to see the other things that give you joy is super important. And you also don't have to be like broken to work on your mind. You know what I'm saying? Like you can
yeah.
be a super normal, super happy person. Like take you for example, you're extremely grateful for life. You have a very positive outlook on things. You can still work on your mental health. You can still add benefit to mental health. It doesn't just have to
Yep.
be, well, I have no hope, now is the time I should work on it. So I think anybody listening, like take that into account. If you are a natural light in the world you work, in the place you live, just keep working on it. Just keep adding to it, because the only thing you're going to do is just positively influence others, and that just goes so much further than what you can see. And then
Yep.
just to tidy it up, I think, and I'll get off my soapbox after this, the gym is a great foundation to build the mental health that you may want, but you need to remember it's not going to be the house. That's you. All right. The habits are going to build that strong foundation that allow you to build the life you want. So as soon as you get that set and you understand what that looks like and takes for you, that's when the real opportunities will arise and continue to grow, and will continue to maybe be a struggle, but will definitely shape you for who you are.
Yeah, I agree. I think all those are good points. And like, I think having those hobbies, man, they help you too. They help you just find out a lot about yourself too. Because I mean, the gym, when you push yourself for PRs and things like that, like we're using that as an example since we're here, teaches you how to fail, teaches you how to grow, teaches you like those things. If you can take a look at a mindset of those things that you're doing and you enjoy doing, like what you did, like how far you came. Because like going on golf, right? You're not driving at 350 yards the first time out. Like
Nope.
you had to practice and get at it. But like what like you got to understand the process of you did getting there, and like what you did. You got to take a look back. Like not everyone's good at the first thing they started, but they end up enjoying something. Like right now I couldn't go out and ice skate, right? And there's some people
Yeah.
that like that have done it for their whole life, and they're like phenomenal at it. But they started off where I was at too, right? It's the same thing. But no matter what you did, so if someone else that's just starting, it's going to go through the same thing you did. But you got to be kind of grateful for the spots that you came from. And like you said, have a great mindset. That's why I said I feel like I'm still learning, even with a great mindset too. Still learning people, still learning how to talk to certain people, still learning how to connect with certain people. Like there's like everyone's different and how they handle certain things, and you can't expect people to be the same way as you. No one's going to have the same thing as you. So you got to understand and learn how to adapt to certain people that way too. So
Yeah.
that's my opinion.
Absolutely. Well, we want to thank all of you for tuning in, listening to episode 3, mental health. Like hopefully most of you saw post on social. We'll be back on a regular posting routine now. Holidays are over besides New Year's, but we're back at it. We're ready to rock. Every Sunday we'll be posting a new episode, so be ready for that. Keep sending us your submission of drinks. Keep tagging us when you are drinking the energy drinks. We love to see it. It makes our day better. We're a community. We love the support. Jared, anything you want to add?
I think what are we got some from was it El Jefe energy drinks or whatever they came in.
Yeah.
They'll probably have to touch base on too. They said they were kind enough to send us some free samples, which is kind of it's very big, especially if we're starting off still like low on here. So you gotta be kind of grateful for that. So we'll be trying a couple of those. We still got together. We got to review the Crepe Grand. I know I got it, and I reviewed it on the channel or Instagram page. Sorry, but we got some things moving forward that we're looking forward to. And then I think in February I'll be back up and visiting you, so we'll be trying to do some in-person stuff for you guys as well. So that's the plan right now. We just got a couple weeks here we'll have to get through and make some other our other podcast stuff, and we'll have a couple in-person ones for you guys too. But that's in the future. We're looking forward to the next episode.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And once again, we could not do this without you guys and your support. So we greatly appreciate you listening, watching if it's on YouTube that you're enjoying this on. We all encourage you to like, subscribe, share it, give it to your friends. If you found something out of it that was encouraging or motivational, spread the word. We are more than grateful for all that listen already, and are continually grateful for those who decide to join us on this journey and what we're doing and what we're about. And Jared, I think you know what time it is. Caffeine Bros
Caffeine Bros to the moon.
Caffeine Bros to the moon. There it is.
All right, bam, boom. What'd you think?
Good.